Well, okay, thank you again, guys. And let me say, I'll definitely ask for questions at the end of me talking, but really it's fine with me if y'all want to interrupt or raise a hand with questions as well. A lot of stuff just dovetails together. It's funny how renovations relate to repairs, relate to renters, and so on. So just kind of however y'all like to do it. So I'll ask for questions at the end, but sometimes while it's on a certain topic, it's easier to just, drill down. So y'all feel free to be casual and, kind of let me know any questions as we're going through. To kind of start, so I'm talking to you guys. So if you don't, I don't know how familiar you guys are with turnkey itself. The concept of turnkey is, meaning that it's a passive investment for you guys. You are, at the beach with your families while your money is making you money because of decisions or actions you took years ago. To tell you all a little bit about me, I personally, so I drink the Kool-Aid big time. My husband and I have 8 houses with MidSouth HomeBuyers that I have slowly accumulated through the 14 years that I've worked there. Just to kind of let you know, I'm definitely speaking from my heart on what we do and how we do it and what the experience is like. I think probably I don't probably need to touch too much on sort of why real estate. I bet this group probably has some, awareness of that. Real estate has made more millionaires in this country than any other type of investment that there is, and sort of particularly real estate plus time has a pretty magical and proven combination. Memphis, so I'm with MidSouth HomeBuyers. We are the oldest operating turnkey provider in the U.S. As Heather was saying, I'm able to supply references of folks that have bought dozens of houses from us over decades at a time. We also do have a wait list for the properties, as Heather knows. And I kind of say, if you've genuinely been setting people up with something that was profitable to them for 2 decades, you darn well better have a line. It's not lack of inventory per se. We bought, rehabbed, and offered to our investors about 470 houses last year. I get 5 to 7 a week on my end. So that wait time really is just happy repeat investors coming back for more and more. Our little joke is that the wait list is really a Ferris wheel, because people just kind of get to the top, they get their house, and then they start back over. But zooming out big picture a little bit. So we're in 2 markets. We're in Memphis and Little Rock. I'm talking to you guys from Memphis right now. That's where we are the oldest operating turnkey provider from. We've been in business for 22 years. We expanded to Little Rock about 5 years ago. That's only about 2.5 hours from here. It's been an enormous success. And so when I'm talking about stuff, I'm talking about Little Rock and Memphis kind of in one bundle for the most part. You'll see houses from me in both markets if you guys decide you want to work with us. Memphis particularly is a hotbed. We have investors in 17 different countries around the world and all 50 states. Particularly a lot of people from high cost of living markets. But one of the reasons for that is that Memphis particularly has price and rent relationships that are extremely unusual. So most of the country correlates rent and price either high or low. So, right, like you've got sky high purchase prices in New York and you've got sky high rents, but no margin between. In fact, you'd be negative cash flow. You can buy a house in Mena, Arkansas for $45,000, but it's going to rent for $250 a month. The reason that investors from Australia, Japan, China, Florida, Hawaii, Alaska, and on are investing in Memphis and Little Rock is that we have higher rental demand than we have purchase demand. And it's relatively unusual. 53% of the Memphis population rents. That is so unusual. It puts us in the 98th percentile for the nation. It's almost like a landlord's market, if you will. And so, and some of that, depending on where y'all's interest lies in this, goes back into our major economic drivers. Memphis is we have the busiest cargo airport on planet Earth. We were second to Hong Kong. until the pandemic. And then the pandemic caused people to shop online at such a great rate that we became the busiest cargo airport on planet Earth. Well, what does that mean to y'all for as investors? One, our renters have tons of stable employment. Two, it's essentially, we have a large working class labor population here in Memphis and have for years. You can graduate high school in Memphis and get a job throwing boxes for FedEx for $19, $20 an hour, which we're a town that you can live in a safe neighborhood in for under $1,000. One thing I like about that economic driver as an investor myself is that it's incredibly stable. You think about how Detroit was impacted, right, when all of car manufacturing went overseas. Well, there's no way to take getting a package from New York to China, from New York to LA and have Mexico do that faster or China do that faster. It's a 200-year-old industry for us. So, for example, before the Civil War, all cotton grown in the US came through Memphis, and today all cotton grown in the US comes through Memphis. And so particularly it gives us this, it's kind of a slice of socioeconomic life that I don't see in other cities, where we have these bedroom communities of people stably employed for Amazon has a huge presence here. We have Amazon warehouse workers, FedEx workers, and so on. And it's just like the Goldilocks, like brick homes, kind of a good size, not too big. You don't want your rental properties to be too large. They'll just kind of eat you up between renters as far as paint, flooring. You don't want it too small. The family might turn over too much. And so the stars just aligned here in a lot of ways for that. And same with Little Rock. We also have really landlord friendly laws as well. My New Yorkers and my Californians particularly will have horror stories about eviction processes and stuff like that. Luckily with us, that's a rarity, but at the same time, if you have 20 houses for 20 years, somebody's going to get divorced or lose their job, and you're going to want to be able to do what's best for the property and for your investment in that. And we handle all of that. So that's some of the bigger picture market stuff. Now, kind of why MidSouth within all of that. We basically just kind of got it down to a science, having been doing it for so long. I mean, the neighborhoods that we work in, the nature of our rehab. One of the things that makes us really unique in the turnkey world is the depth of our rehab. And this matters particularly, and some of you guys have probably done landlording before, but maintenance and vacancy are the killers of return. You're either getting that monthly deposit and that cash flow every month, or you've got some element of vacancy and some element of maintenance. And so what our job is for you guys is to mitigate those factors and keep them at bay. So on the front end, one of the things that's the most unusual about how we do business is that our business model is to offer you homes that have every major component brand new. So every house I offer you guys is going to have a brand new 30-year shingle roof, a brand new furnace, brand new A-coil, brand new air condenser, brand new 40-gallon water heater. So I just ticked off every big expensive item on a house that when it pops can just wipe out a couple of years of cash flow. We offer a complete warranty full on the whole house for the first year you own it. It's hands down the longest in the industry. It's in-house, and that's important to clarify too. You can find other turnkey providers that will say there's a 1-year warranty, but they're talking about buying an American Home Shield kind of warranty on the home. That if your renter does not have hot water to shower with, they're not going to be cool with it taking like 5 days to get some warranty rep out. So make sure if you're kind of looking around that you're differentiating. So being in-house, it just means, boom, we take care of Mrs. Smith on the spot. Though frankly, the houses are in such great shape, it doesn't cost us very much to do that warranty, but you won't find it elsewhere. And then you've got a 5-year manufacturer's warranty on your furnace, your air condenser, and your water heater. And then just the depth of the renovation and the way it has evolved over our 20 years in business. I love working for someone that will spend more money on the front end out of his pocket. That's my boss, Terry, so that he can charge people less money on the back end when it comes to maintenance. And that's absolutely how we operate. Being in business for 20 years, we've had a really long time to just look back and say what didn't work and why didn't work. So I'll give you guys a quick example I love. We used to use this light fixture by the front doors, and it was the kind with the jelly jar, and you'd unscrew it and take the jar off, change the light bulb, put the bulb back on and switch it out. Well, we kept seeing, and that light fixture cost us about $4 a unit. Well, we kept seeing that light fixture on investors' bills between renters because the renters would drop the jar and break it, or they would lose it. So we switched to a light fixture that cost us $18 a unit instead of $4 a unit, but the renter can reach their hand right up inside that light fixture and change the bulb. Boom. Now we don't see it on investors' bills between renters. And so it's a little thing, but every little thing is detailed to that level. One of the ways we attract a high quality renter is it's the old school provide value idea. Our kind of goal is to have Mrs. Smith, the renter, sitting in the nicest house on the block, but paying maybe $5 less a month than her friends. And it's why we are flooded with applications. We have a really high quality pool of people to choose from. Talking about keeping vacancy at bay, our average renter stays almost 4 years. National average for renters is 2 years. So we are almost double that. And it's through a big combination of customer service, good quality finishes. We ask every renter that comes to us why they are leaving their current housing situation. And particularly in Memphis, where the secret has really gotten out about it being an investment hotspot, the answer is my landlord won't fix anything, over and over and over again. And so we are a combination of, one, stuff isn't breaking because it's in such good shape, and then two, when it does, we fix it efficiently. But down to those little nuances like that light fixture. Well, one of the ways our house is nicer than the other houses on the street, but maybe $5 less, ceiling fans in every bedroom. It costs us about an extra $70 a bedroom. But not only is in the South, a lot of us like to sleep under fans. It gets hot here. It'll add about an extra 2 years to the life of your air condenser if you have ceiling fans throughout the home, because it'll make a 72-degree room feel like a 70-degree room instead of running it as hard with the little $20 dome light. And so I know these are real micro examples, but everything from the renovation, we're the same way on tenant selection. So obviously that's a really important thing too. It's the same thing. We've looked back whenever a tenant ever got off the rails in our 2 decades of history and said, why did that happen? So for tenant approval, we do the big stuff that everybody does. Of course, we've got tri-merge credit check, criminal background check, employment verification, prior landlord verification, but our approach is pretty different. If you get approved by our property management company, you would get approved anywhere in town within the limits of your income. A couple different things. We're doing a tri-merge credit check. That means we're paying to check all 3 bureaus. It's the most expensive credit check there is. Most property management companies, if you really dig under the surface, they're paying, they do a credit check, but they're paying to check maybe 1, maybe 2 bureaus. You can absolutely have a flaw that's on one report and not the other. We're doing a criminal background check that has to be clean, except for maybe a minor traffic violation. But where we get into some other areas that were a little bit different there, some small examples. So everybody requires prior landlord history, right? With anybody else, let's say you go rent from Oak Shores Apartments for 2 years, you leave there in good standing, you paid your rent on time, you got your security deposit back, you go live with your mom for a year, you come apply with us, you check every other box. We will actually tell that person, go away, rent somewhere else, come back to us when you have immediate landlord history. So their 2 years of good standing with another apartment complex would work everywhere else. But one of the ways we've seen people get off track is when they're not used to a giant monthly bill and they suddenly take on a giant monthly bill, even though the income was there at the 3 times the monthly rent. And so it's just one of the many ways that we have these little layers of nuance in how we do things. Another one might be, you're a roommate, you're one of 3 roommates. So you're paying $350 a month because you're sharing a house and now you want to go live by yourself. we might approve you for an $850 a month house, but we might turn you down for a $1,250 a month house, even if you have the 3 times a month income mark, because we've seen people struggle when they have to make a huge jump in their payment, regardless of whether it's that 3 times. And so there's just a lot of experience that we bring to the table. And it even, I think, affects how, like, your interaction with the company. So a subtle thing that may seem like it would matter to you guys is that Terry, the owner of MidSouth, makes a really great place to work. We have no turnover here. Nobody ever leaves us. We add roughly 25 employees a year because we're growing our management by the 400 or so houses we're putting out. But I've been with MidSouth for 14 years, since 2009. I'm your contact from, this Zoom all the way till you close. As soon as you close, you're sort of me on the other side. Her name is Lisa Counts. Lisa has been with us for 13 years. Matt, our property manager, has been with us for 11 years. Even our leasing agents, current leasing agents, been with us for 7 or 8 years. So your renter hears a smiling voice, answer the phone after 2 rings. We spend some money on staffing that is not typical for other property management companies. Pre-COVID, I used to go to a lot of investment conferences, and there was always a running theme of people complaining about having to manage their managers, and like triple email to find out a piece of information, or call and leave messages to understand a repair. I saw a compliment from one of my investors come through to my team that I just happened to be CC'd on. And she was saying that her other property management company will send her a statement and it just says plumbing, $400. No other details, no other context. And we take before and after photos of every repair we do. We actually have a staff person that just, maintenance guys aren't always poets. They don't always put as much detail as we want in there. We actually have a staff person that just goes over any of our reports with repairs to make sure that the details are there. Even Lisa, being kind of your me on the other side, her title is investor liaison, and her role is frankly, when the rent's paid in full, there's not repairs, there's not a lot of questions to have. But when you do have them, her role is to make sure that communication is always super timely to our investors. It's a way to spend money on staffing that not everybody does, because in a lot of companies, the person you're emailing to ask about whether you have an approved renter yet is literally the person that also tours renters, or literally the person that also swings hammers is the head of maintenance that answers repair questions. And sometimes they're under a house, sweating copper pipe, not answering emails. And so at the end, it's just a very passive investment. We auto deposit rents into the bank account of your choice the first week of every month. We email you a detailed report. At the same time, you've got an online owners portal that's basically an online organizational dashboard. All your monthly reports are there. In the first 3 weeks of January, we create an annual summary that's everything your CPA will need to know to get you the tax benefits that come with real estate. And it really just chugs along. We do a 45-day check-in with my boss, emails everybody 45 days after they close and ask them how their experience was and ask them for feedback. And in this case, it was a gentleman that had been with us for a long time. And let me see if I even still have his email. Oh, I don't, but he had said, just thank you for the peace of mind of not having to be involved with the properties, and just that he likes that he knows we take care of his property like he would. And I guess that's really a running theme too. This business came out of my boss buying and creating these properties for him to hold himself, and the management company managed his own personal properties. And so like one reason, we don't charge application fees to renters, which is kind of unheard of. It's an enormous income stream for property managers, yet we're doing a deeper background check than most of them do. And what that comes from actually is Terry, the owner, having a management company that was created to manage his properties, not to become a profitable property management company. We make a couple bucks as a property management company. It's not a loss leader, but we modeled everything. Everything that we do is how he managed his own properties. And when he had personally spent his nights and weekends renovating a home, pouring his life savings into it, me standing in the front yard talking to a potential renter that he thinks is going to be good, he didn't want to say, hey, write me a check for $60 and I'll consider whether you can live in this home. And so another one, the second, another little example of that is that we don't mark up maintenance. And actually, that's really kind of a huge point. So maintenance is an income stream for pretty much every property management company I've ever encountered. 10 to 15% is the normal markup. For us, every drop of paint ever used on your house is going to be passed on to you at what the property management company paid for it. And so I always say, if you got 2 identical houses from me and you took one to a different management company, the one you left with us would outperform its twin by a huge amount, just because we, as the people that renovated your property, are the people managing it. So not only are we not marking up materials, we have a warehouse full of materials. Heather, you might have seen that video we have where we really tore that. And I can email you guys, or she can link to that video. I would say if you're only going to spend 9 more minutes researching us, watch that, because we basically, our secret sauce comes out of buying these renovation materials in bulk. We buy 400 water heaters a year, so on. We do not buy from Lowe's and Home Depot. We buy from the people that Lowe's and Home Depot buy from. And so I will say this, one of the reasons, so I've been in property management since I was 19 years old. I've worked in other markets. I've worked for other companies. I've also worked here for 14 years. The reason I buy my properties directly from MidSouth, the same full price, I don't get like an employee discount on a house, I pay the same management rate, is that I could not recreate it cheaper being here. We average $3,000 to $4,000 in profit per house sale, which is extremely skinny profit margins for real estate. But we also sell 470 to 500 houses a year. And so if you do the math, we're a small privately held company. So it works out where we're healthy and stable. We're going to be around for you guys for the next 20 years, but we really are selling these houses for 99% of what we have in them ourselves. And so the reason I buy them directly, aside from the value of my nights and weekends, is that it would cost me $110,000 out of my pocket to recreate a $105,000 MidSouth house, just because I'm walking in and paying full retail for that water heater, or paying full retail for a roof crew. Our roofing crew is even in-house for us because we put on 400 plus roofs a year. And so on the maintenance side, aside from the fact that we have we have your we have the same thermostat in every house, the same water heater in every house. We also have full-time licensed salaried electricians and plumbers. And there's not a property management company on the earth that it makes sense for them to have an electrician on salary, but it does for us. So the most expensive tier of maintenance that an investor of ours could ever be charged would be $75 an hour for an electrician to be on your home for an hour. If y'all have ever hired an electrician at home, you did not pay $75 for the hour. And then our dude's going to be in your house for 15 minutes because he's worked on this thermostat before. He's worked on that water heater before. When somebody coming in cold at $125 an hour is going to be there for 45 minutes, and they'll mark it up on top of that. And so it creates a very big difference there. And that's really kind of us in a nutshell. It's the quality of the renovation and the quality of the management and how those dovetail together.
Liz,
go ahead.
I have a quick question for you. That was awesome. Obviously the value is there. It's pretty easy sell. As you were talking about the Ferris wheel of people going around and buying and then getting back in line, essentially, when you get to the point where you get on the ride, do you have to take the house that you guys are offering, or can you say that doesn't match my parameters? I wanted something that is fill in the blank. Do you get back in line then, or do you get to wait until the next one?
Gosh, no. So I keep sending you houses until you see the one you want. I have worked really hard to make a shopping experience for my investors even though the demand is such that there's more investors than houses. And so what I do, basically, the simplest way to explain it is I'm essentially always like sold out. Everything's under contract except for the house I get that day. I add that house to the website, and I'd like to screen share with you guys a little bit, and I'll show you our website in a second. That I add that house to the website. I mark it under contract because it's not available to the public. I compose an email that is essentially a link to that house on the website with a little bit of extra information on it. The wait list is a spreadsheet, just like you'd imagine. What I do is I start at the top. I send that email to the first 15 investors in line. I wait an hour. I send it to the next 15 investors after that. I wait an hour, send it to the next 15 after that. And I basically just keep dropping it down until somebody asks me for it. I have found, for whatever reason, we call it our top group, but it's the people that are actively receiving those emails. For some reason, 120 to 140 is about how long it seems to take me, how many people I offer it for. It might be number 22 that asked me for it. It might be number 72. It's first come, first serve. And so the first person that asks me for it gets it. And it just kind of works. And what it does is, your experience of it, Heather, is you'll receive 2 to 3 to 4 emails a week from me. If you're on vacation, you can ignore my emails. If you look at it and you say, oh, I wanted Little Rock, this one's in Memphis, or I wanted under this price point, this one's above it, you just go on about your life. You know, I'm going to keep offering it until it finds its right person. They tend to go under contract in, from my experience, it's like 6 to 24 hours from when I start offering it. At the beginning, to you guys, it will feel a little faster because you're actually lower in that drop down tier at the beginning. And I'll send it to you at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and someone that got it at 9 a.m. and has been thinking about it all day asks me for it. But then they go to the back of the line. And so you're also continually getting higher in that distribution. So, you know, my repeat investors, let me say this, I'm doing this whole elaborate setup so that I can get new investors like you guys into our fold. My repeat investors act like they're ordering hamburgers at a drive-thru. Like, they're just like, I'll take it. One of my guys joked recently, he said, you're just buying the business model by the square foot. And I kind of like that, because it's really true that the neighborhoods all feel the same, the houses all feel the same. And this system, this waitlist system I'm describing to you guys, actually evolved out of me making the houses publicly available to everybody that was interested all at once. And I would have the same, and I'm grateful for my repeat investors, don't get me wrong, but I would have like this same dude in California get 7 houses in a row. And I would have a sweet, you know, older lady from Australia that had flown out here and toured with us, that these emails were coming in the middle of the night for her. And she just didn't have a chance to get her foot in the door. And so I basically, at some point, it was 2011, actually, when I started running a wait list, which I will say is way before podcasts. It's way before this turnkey idea was as understood, that we started having a little bit more demand than houses. And so I just emailed all of my list and said, I'm putting y'all in order because I've got to slow this down so folks have time to evaluate and think about it. Because I know MidSouth will be better off. You know, anybody, a new investor like you guys, you eventually become a repeat investor that refers family and friends. And so, so kind of the whole point is to give space. And then a couple of other things. The reason that works, because I recognize that, you know, doing something long distance, maybe 24 hours after you got an email about the house, can feel fast. There's a couple different things I want y'all to know. One, I can answer almost every question you might have about your house right now, because we are so formulaic. And I'll just give a quick example. We always put in new washer dryer hookups every single time. We never buy in flood zones, you know, and that goes on and on and on, as far as always, never. Then at the end of the day, we are just super oriented towards your happiness. So a little thing, there's no earnest money with our contracts, because we want everything to be contingent on your happiness. So when you do that, so like say you've been getting the emails for a couple of weeks, and you're like, okay, you know what, this one just has a little extra curb appeal to me. It's kind of in my personal price point. All you do is reply to that email and say, Liz, I'll take it. But everything remains contingent on your happiness. I could get you a different house if you discovered something that you hadn't understood on the front end about that house, or you just have a personal family matter. If you want to go invest it in Bitcoin, we want you to be happy. We want to work with you for 20 plus years. And so even at the point that you reserve it, we kind of just stay at your service. We're not going to hold your feet to the fire. And then from that process, we basically, there's no such thing as a passive real estate purchase, but we try to cross all your T's and dot all your I's. So we'll send you that little, our purchase contract's about 1.5 pages because you can break it for any reason at any time. And so we send you that paperwork. You can DocuSign it on your phone, send it back to us. We're going to connect you with a great title company. If you're on the finance track, some people pay cash, some people finance. We'll have already gotten you set up with a fantastic lender for these properties. They'll rock and roll. We actually get you, you can use anyone you want, but we get you a quote for homeowners insurance from the company we personally insure with. And so it's just like we push it, get you down the track. And then for cash purchases, it's usually about a 2-week close. For finance purchases, I'll set it about 30 to 40, usually about 30 days out. They usually close within 4 to 5 weeks. And then as soon as you close, we call it our congrats on closing email, where I connect you with the property management team. They reach out in turn and kind of introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what they'll be doing for you. And then that's kind of where the passive part of it, we're putting money in your bank account every month goes.
And the houses that are financed are also cash flow positive, correct?
100%. Yeah.
And that's with 25% down?
Yeah, and you can do 20% in this day of interest rates. I see people putting 25% down more frequently just because you default get a better rate with 25% down over 20. And then obviously it just boosts the cash flow a little bit. I see people do it all different ways under the sun, really.
And then the price of your houses are typically, I think when we talked, you said under 200. Am I right with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me pull up our website if I can, and I want to screen share the available properties. Here we go. Let's see if this works, y'all.
Heather, can I ask questions too?
Of course, John, you can always ask questions.
Okay, well, you're beating me to the punch, so that's why I asked.
Go for it.
This is my question, okay? Is there a limit to how many houses you can buy? And when you buy a house, are you allowed to go look at the house before the people move in or during the renovation so I can see what you're doing? And 3, who determines the rent price, and do you go up 5% every year?
Great. Okay, a lot to unpack there. Some good questions. Okay, so on the finance side, so the finance side is the most common side. It's absolutely fine to get mortgages on the property. It's the most popular way to do it, or it's the most common way. A lot of people can't even afford cash. That does make it a slightly longer wait time, and it's one at a time on that path. So it's about a 6-month wait on the finance side, and it is one at a time because I'm literally only getting to you in 6 months by not letting a single person ahead of you in line do 2 at a time. Now, the day you get house number 1 under contract, you can go back on for number 2. So that whole, month you're getting closed, you're going to be moving back up. That kind of is that Ferris wheel thing we were talking about. I have investors that only buy from us, and they kind of do that 2 a year. I have folks that because of their personal goals, buy 5 a year elsewhere, and 2 from us. And frankly, those people are our biggest fans because they have something to compare us to. They'll tell me, like, my other property managers are tired of hearing about you guys, and I really wish you'd buy more houses. But I will also say, as a very quick side note, and I'll get to the rest of your questions, Sean, we're also really picky on the buy side. We pass on about 25 houses for every one that we acquire. And it's pretty much a mandate from the owner that we do not pick up a house that he would not personally own in his own portfolio. we will pass on a house just because it can meet our construction requirements, neighborhood safety requirements, everything else. And if we see too many for rent signs in that neighborhood, we may not be able to tell why people are moving out, but we'll decide not to buy it because we don't want to find out the hard way. So it's a lot of selection on that. On the cash side, it's a faster cycle. It's only about a 45 to 60 day wait. And because that is so short, I can let people do 2 houses at a time. I hope to speed things up on the finance side and get to that point. We're not there yet, but I'm adding a pipeline of some new construction properties in Little Rock where about 95% of what you're going to see from us is renovated existing property. But about the 70 new construction build to rents that we're going to be rolling off lets us control our supply a little bit. So I'm hoping, John, to have a faster and shorter answer and hopefully even be able to introduce 2 at a time for my finance folks. In addition to every house, I offer you guys having the renovation complete. So the renovation is already complete at the time I offer it to you. So there's not really a walking in during the process time. We'll also have already taken a deposit from a renter. So you know that rent is exact and it's not going to change. They may or may not have moved in. Like it all basically, we have this very elaborate computer system that manages our houses. And so we have to have when the boxes are checked that say our 3 final punch listed and internal quality controls have been done. And when property management checks that they've taken a deposit, which is actually sometimes before, we often take a deposit before we're even done with the rehab. In fact, my property manager was curious how many days after the rehab being done on average did we take a deposit? And the answer was -6, meaning typically the norm is 6 days before we're done, which means we don't have photos yet, which is how well we've designed these, frankly, to be popular. And so that renter may or may not have moved in. Most people don't. You kind of want us as a buffer where you're not shaking hands with your renter and meeting them. I'd say only about 5% of our investors get home inspections just because of the warranty and everything's so new, but we welcome it. And so, John, that might be, the fit for you where you could absolutely, of course, have a home inspection and see that. I can have videos sent to you of the street. And we also do once a month group tours, y'all, if you ever want to come to town. Now, about 95% of my investors have never set foot in town, but I love it when they come and it will just push your confidence through the roof. In fact, we have nobody ever comes, this costs us a little bit. We have we'll give you $500 towards your closing costs on your first house if you come out to check us out. And so one thing I can send anybody that's interested in information, but every 11 months out of the year, I don't do it in December because just nobody wants to come around Christmas, but we do a once a month group tour and I tour you through our warehouses. I tour you through our property management office. And then we get out in the field, we drive houses in all different conditions and we walk through them all. So there's definitely ways that you can come and check us out. If you super wanted to fly out here and tour an occupied property, it kind of can spook the renter, but you could. I think the hard thing about that would just be the timing because you're not going to know. I'd say the home inspection is a more typical path to sort of make sure you feel like you've had an independent verification, just because you're not going to know the exact day that you find your house. You'd have to kind of book airfare pretty quickly and get on the stick. So I would recommend coming to one of the group tours, but we can definitely make sure you have, 100 photos of your house from every angle and video of the street, or come and drive by the house that's occupied and I'll walk you through unoccupied ones and all that.
Well, yeah, you know what? I didn't understand all the details. I thought that we buy it from you, then you renovate it, and then you find the renter. You do all the work ahead of time so that we just buy it and then you take over the management of it, right?
Exactly.
At any point, can I sell the house?
Yes, it's your house free and clear, no
Okay,
strings attached. You will love us as managers, but if for any reason you did not and you wanted to fire us, you could fire us. There's a million other property management companies in Memphis that would be lining up to take over the management of your house.
mhm.
You can decide you want to move into it. There's no strings attached. Our warranties are part of our management. So the 1-year warranty, we have to manage your property to, do the repairs. And then we actually have a pretty cool lifetime occupancy guarantee written into our management agreement that says that if your property were ever vacant for more than 90 days, we would start paying you full rent on the 91st day until the day we found a renter for you. We have never spent a penny on that warranty. Our longest vacancy of record is, I believe it's 55 days. But you will not find another property management company that will tell you they will pay you your rent if they can't find you a renter in 90 days. And I actually have an investor that was buying in a different market. I was buying in Baltimore at the same time he was buying from us. And he sent me a series of questions that were sad. Basically, his rent had gone backwards on him from what they told him it was going to be when he bought it. I was able to tell him that in our 22 years in business, we have never had rents go backwards. And that's that 2 decades of business happened to cover some of the weirdest and wildest times in real estate that have ever existed. So we were in operation way before the Great Recession, through the bubble, through the biggest real estate crash that the US has ever known and beyond. And so I can say, and that, somebody that bought from us in 2005 or 2006, historically not the best time to buy real estate in the US, they got their cash flow like popcorn popping through 07, 08, 09. As we went through some of that recession, because and it's in fact, really that 90-day rent guarantee that I'm talking about, the reason I put that in writing, even though we don't have a vacancy longer than 55 days, is because frankly, one of the places the bodies are buried in turnkey real estate is that out of towners are typically from higher cost of living markets than ours, where you can't know that $1,050 is too much rent to ask for this big house that in your market might rent for $2,000 a month. And the relationship, basically from an ROI standpoint, $25 in rent equals about $4,000 in purchase price from an ROI standpoint. And so the carrot, and where a lot of turnkey providers can mess up is that they want to really juice that market rent so that they can sell the house for more, and it pencils out the same to somebody in California or New York that could not know that rent is too high. And that's why you hear about people having 4-month vacancies, because frankly, the rent that they bought it at was not realistic in the first place. And so anyway, just to sort of say that that lifetime management guarantee, it says something about that. And then let me real quick, if I can, and do plenty of time for more questions and stuff, but this is the available property section of our website. They all are under contract to investors at the top of our wait list, but I'm directing your attention here because, again, we are formulaic to the extreme. If you guys see houses on here that you would like, if they were available, it is well worth your time to hop on the list, which there's no obligation with, and that will allow me the opportunity to send you houses in the future. And so here's this little cash flow customizer. It's kind of cool. You can play with your down payment. You can play, this is the interest. Every Monday, my preferred lender sends me a list of interest rates. This does reflect a rate buy down because a lot of people do that. At the time you're getting close to investing with us, you'll be actively working with the lender and can kind of talk with her about what terms you might have. Cash investors do get an 8% management rate. We also have a portfolio discount. When you get to 6 houses with us, the management rate will also drop to 8%. And so you can kind of fiddle with that. And then as you scroll down here, one thing, so just little things, shutters and bushes, shutters and bushes, shutters and bushes, y'all are seeing these exteriors. We're just doing kind of the little same curb appeal. Let's go over here and look at these kitchens. So we put in new kitchen cabinets every time. You see these here, 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 and so on. It's one of the neat little ways our houses are just a little bit nicer than everybody else's. Every other turnkey provider or landlord out there is painting the existing cabinets. Another thing you'll see a running theme on is these nice tile shower surrounds. You see how every bathroom just looks the same. So again, both for people kind of putting them under contract within a day or two of getting the email about them and me saying I can answer, 99% of your questions. That's here. And then next to each, let me find like a nice little typical buddy here. For property details, this button is on next to every house. And you're going to see sometimes people will think this is a copy and paste because it looks so identical to house and that it's just like our standard renovation. It is not. This is property specific. We just do the same stuff a lot. So it wouldn't say these things if it wasn't specific to this house. And then as you scroll down, we started staining these front doors a couple years ago. We used to paint them red. It's that same thing. We're kind of noticing it too often on investors' bills. It costs us about an extra $60,000 a year in materials to stain these front doors, and it's about an extra $15,000 in labor. But it's saving folks money from when we painted them in our early days. And then at the bottom, you can kind of, it'll show you where this property is within Memphis or within Little Rock. The total monthly payment here is, let's see, this is cash buyer cash flow. So when it's set to a cash purchase, like up here, oh, it's because here, let me customize this. It's going to reload. So now, there we go. So we'll look at Pecan here in Little Rock. So this total monthly payment is the website's best guess at your mortgage payment. I can hover over this question here. So you've got principal and interest, taxes divided by 12 is 93, estimated insurance at 56. And you can see that up here. So property insurance, obviously these are default clicked because you can't not pay for them. And let me add in property management here and redo all of our numbers. And so this is going to change the numbers, and it's kind of fun. You can play with 20% down versus 25, or some people put more. And so it'll be basically rent minus mortgage minus management. And so this is just a 1-year projection. Over time, a couple of different things happen. Obviously your rent goes up with time. Oh, John, you'd asked about rent increases. So 5% is relatively on the nose for what the market is doing, give or take. We have a slightly more subtle approach. There's a couple different things. So our goal is to make you the most money out of the property possible, which doesn't mean a longer occupancy. So a couple different things. We like to renew at the same rate on the very first renewal, because we have found that our really letting the renter put down roots in the property. Their kids become friends with the other kids in the neighborhood. They get used to the school system. That kind of stuff can get them really established. And then after that first renewal, where we like to do it at the same time the first time, then you're in a great position to do it every single year going after that. Then another thing that we want to do for occupancy sakes, let's say the market rent on your properties jumped up $50 a month. We might give your existing renter a $35 increase out of that 50, because them staying at 35 is far more profitable to you than them moving out at 50. That $15 a month extra does not cover the cost of 30 days, even as fast as we are with turns and as cheap as we are with maintenance. It's still cheaper to have them stay. If they were to move out anyway, we would relist it at 50, but that's the less profitable scenario than them renewing at 35.
Can I ask one more question? And then I want Lisa to ask. Do they do a 1-year rental and then it goes month to month after that? Or do they just do 1-year rentals, one after another after another?
One after another after another. There's no months.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And as a
Yep.
side note, just for y'all, this, and I'm here to answer all this today, but this is if y'all are talking with spouses or partners or this property management section of the website that I've just clicked on here. You can download our management agreement right here. You can download our lease here. And this just has some great discussions about our approach, which frankly, I kind of have already touched on about how we manage properties. But so you can actually, this is our property management agreement, and you can even see warranties and guarantees here. How do I get out of this? Which are also, by the way, detailed here. Some of that occupancy guarantee I touched on in the 1 year and so on. And so, yeah, kind of cruising this. Oh, and then you can sort by state. You can sort by cash flow. You can sort by price as well. And sometimes, you know, you might want to say like, let me compare, let me get to like a bit more lower price. Oh, and Heather, you'd asked about price points. So our single family homes are going to be between, well, here I just sorted by price. Let's go down. Woo. I must have sorted by cash flow or something. I don't know why that's, but so 95,000 is our cheapest house. That's going to be a rent of about $750. That might not be on the website today, but we've got this guy. And then the vast majority, 80% of our houses are going to be between $100,000 and $130,000. That's just kind of our Memphis and Little Rock sweet spot. We like safe, peaceful, working class, emphasis on working, blue collar neighborhoods where you have low taxes, low purchase prices. And so you can kind of see some of these relationships here as we go through. Oh, I remember what I was going to tell you. So but you can say, I want to compare, let's go, I want to compare this $115,000 house with this, let's find, here with a $118,000 house in Little Rock, and let's see, and then I can hit this compare homes, and now they're here side by side. I designed all of this when we didn't have a website and we had a bunch of available properties at once, and I was so proud of it. And then now it doesn't quite get used the way I intended, but you can still, you know, it's a great way to get to know us and to see if we're a fit for you. And asking yourself, which ones would I buy, or would I buy if these were available today, is a great way to decide if you want to work with us. And the other thing about it is, as I was describing that waitlist process to you guys, I will be sending you the houses one at a time. And so studying, it would take me probably a month and a half to send you as many houses as we're seeing here. But at the same time, on any given day, the cheapest house I ever have is on here, the most expensive, they're all the same. And so another reason that I suggest the shopping exercise is it can help you say, okay, I'm going to say yes when she sends me blank, a Memphis house at 140 or a Little Rock house at 95, or, you know, kind of whatever works for you guys. Frankly, picking can be one of the hardest parts because you almost have to split hairs to find differences. I would keep them all if I could afford to. And so, yeah. What other questions do y'all have? Or is that hand raised mean that? If that means a question, I see.
Yes, hi, nice to meet you. A great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I have a couple of quick questions here. I'm looking doing some math here, and basically the return on investment is looking about maybe 6 to 7% a year, just on the cash flow alone. Obviously, not taking into account the appreciation of the house every year in the area, right? So, but then when you take into account closing costs, right? Probably in the order of what, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per month. So it's going to take you several years to even recover just the closing costs alone. So really, you're just banking on the appreciation of the house every year, and not so much on the cash flow that you're getting from the house. So do you have any idea on closing costs, how much it's going to be? So
Yeah.
you can compute. And then what is the typical price per square foot that you end up paying for the house?
Great question. So a couple of different things. So there are positive and negatives not counted here. So closing costs aren't reflected, and this will depend a little bit personally. One of the reasons I make a point to buy one house every year is that I get enormous tax benefits out of buying that house. And so one thing I say that I think kind of balances that out is that what the closing costs aren't reflected, but you also have an enormous tax savings going on. I do full depreciation every single year, and I buy one house one a year. So like you said, there's rent appreciation, property appreciation, and all of that. The other thing to remember with closing costs is that they're not 100% sunk costs. So for example, part of your closing costs are going to be a full year's worth of homeowners insurance. And then if you're financed, your lender is going to escrow 7 to 8 months worth of your homeowners insurance. But right here in this total monthly payment, you're also charging your first year's insurance against your cash flows. So just keep in mind that, like, yes, the title work and title insurance, that's part of buying the house. That's, like, if you will, a sunk cost that goes back. But all of those escrows, you're already charging against yourself here in the cash flow, because you're also going to pay as part of your closing costs, prorated property taxes for the year. And then if you're financed, your lender is going to escrow 7 to 9 months worth of property taxes. So just keep in mind to not count that twice, where you're counting it against your first year's cash flows and counting it double when it's not, because that will come back to you. For a cash purchase, closing costs are really low, probably about $1,500. That's title work, title insurance, a little bit of state transfer taxes, and first year's homeowners insurance, and then potentially a property tax prorate. Finance closing costs probably closer to $5,000, because you've got obviously like credit there to charge. The bank makes a little bit up front. You've got loan origination, credit check, and I have zero lender loyalty other than who gives my investors the best numbers. I want to make sure my house cash flows for you as much as possible. And so that's something I actually I have 6 or 7 lenders on my approved lender list, really just because there are people out there that are not the cheapest, but they'll get the deal done, and they're on podcasts and they're very popular. As long as they'll get the deal done. If somebody wants to work with someone more expensive because they have all their documents on file, I'm okay with that if they're prominent down here. But I have personally sourced who I use personally for lowest interest rates and best closing costs. Right. And that's who I would hook you guys up with. Yeah, great question.
So the price per square foot for the house?
Oh, thank you. So we don't price by the square foot at all. And if you do it that way, it's a fine way to look at us if you want to. You're going to end up in our more affordable neighborhoods, because we price our house by the rent only. We think of it like selling an income stream, and you're buying an income stream. And so you'll actually see a pretty wide price per square foot discrepancy, because essentially you can have, our neighborhoods mostly feel the same, right? But you do have, to a degree, there's like a bit of a difference in neighborhood feel between a $95,000 house neighborhood and a $160,000 house neighborhood. If you were to look at that street, always safe, always able to attract a quality renter, never an exception there. In fact, when you talk about how strict our renter criteria is, one thing that's telling you is that our renters have choices and options about where they live. People with choices and options don't put their families in unsafe neighborhoods. So not a spectrum there, but just the house. Basically, as you push up that price range, the houses get bigger, the lots they're on get bigger. They kind of are a little bit further back from the road, and so on. And so what happens is, for us, a house that rents for $800 will have I think it's like $120,000. Let me see here. We'll just do this one here. So Tyler Street. So let's do Memphis. The price to rent relationships are a little bit different per market. Here we go. So 975 to 125 there. That rent will have that price anywhere in town. But so when a 2-bedroom house that is 1,000 square feet rents for $950, that's essentially a higher end neighborhood than when a 4-bedroom, 2-bath that's 1,800 square feet rents for that same $950. That's a more working class neighborhood. So the more working class neighborhood is going to have the better price per square foot, because we're pricing it by the rent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, thank you so much.
No, good question. Any other questions? I have kind of hit on all the stuff I typically hit on.
Chris and Bill both have their hands raised. So Chris, if you want to go and then Bill.
Yes.
Yeah, just by the way, thanks, Liz, for being here today. This is good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, real quickly, as I'm looking at the ones on the website, there are a lot of 1 bedrooms, which you hear a lot about the 3-2 bread and butter. But are the 3 1s and 4 1s, is it fairly typical, or do you go in and look at a house and determine whether it's worthwhile to add an extra bath, or do you just redo them as you get them?
Well, quickly, I don't think we have any 1 bedrooms. I think it might, I think you're looking at bathrooms.
Okay, 1
And
bathrooms,
so-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure. So yeah, so a 3-bedroom, 1 bath is definitely our bread and butter. It's the kind of most common construction style around here. In the neighborhoods that our 3 1s tend to be in, there's a lot of 2 1s where people are happy for the extra bedroom as it is. And as a side note, I don't know if this is exactly your question, but I'll touch on that too. Some of the best renters I personally have ever had have been a little old lady on a fixed income, renting one of my smaller houses, taking great care of it, and just lives there for 7 or 8 years. And I think a lot of investors, it's very natural to think I would want to live here, so it'll be a good rental property because I would want to live here. But for every family that's about to have a second kid that wants a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, you absolutely have another couple that is divorcing and they're downsizing, or they're empty nesters, or so on. And so a second bathroom will get you about $25 more in rent. And then that house, that identical house, will have a corresponding increase in purchase price because the rent determines the purchase price. And so for every couple or person or renter family that's willing to pay more for a second bathroom, you have an individual that could stay just as long or longer and pay on time just as much, that they don't need a second bathroom at all. So we don't see differences in rentability or anything, because you price it right. If you price it right, they work. I used to manage A-class high rises in St. Louis many years ago. And I had a 3-month waiting list for our studio apartments. No other unit style, none of the bigger units, the pricier units had waiting lists. And so my most popular one was a 0-bedroom, 1-bath unit. And it was because of the price point related to the neighborhood. Hyundai sells more cars than Porsche. And so I do get some investors that are just convinced that a second bathroom is the key to life. And if you feel that way, we have plenty of them, so if you can hold on to it. But as a side note, we don't see any difference out of them. I personally own a mixture. And so on the big scale, we don't see differences, and on the little scale of me personally, I don't. And then we don't I think it's more what your question was about. We don't do much full-blown additions. We're going to typically work with the footprint of the house as it is. We might knock down a wall. A lot of time, one thing we do a lot, we widen doorway, like we widen hallways. It lets more natural light in. A lot of these houses are built in the 50s and 60s and they're real boxy. We might open up a kitchen to a living area. So, dad can watch the kids while he cooks or what have you. Once in a blue moon, we might take a giant bedroom and cut it in and make it 2, or vice versa, something like that to improve a layout. But we don't typically, we would not normally do what it would take. Also, frankly, we demo a lot of bad additions. Like when we buy houses, you will see, and it's like the roof slopes and the foundation, because additions are hard to do right. So we don't typically fully change the footprint like that.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Bill, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, just real quick question. Considering doing like an LLC with a group of people, do you sell the LLCs? Do you work with them? How does that process work?
People do it all the time. We're super set up for partnerships. We can help y'all with that in kind of every way, shape, or form.
Okay.
We can even send different rent amounts to different bank accounts. So like, let's say 9 people have one house. We can like portion it out. We can send different reports to everybody. We make that really seamless on that side. I have resources for forming. Most people want to do the LLC in the state that they're buying the house from. I've got affordable resources to do that. You guys may know if you're financing, you can't purchase in the LLC on the front end. And so if you want to combine that with a finance purchase, you need to quit claim the property after you close. My title company that I'll connect you with, they can form the LLC. They'll actually have a cheaper option I'll tell you about if you want to do that. Then they can also quit claim that property. It's like $50 to transfer it to the LLC. And yeah, the only thing I'll say is that we do keep it as one entry on the wait list per purchase. So that LLC would be like one entity. I have a lot of LLCs, and some of them I have like a family trust with 8 people, but the trust doesn't get to buy 8 houses at the top.
Gotcha. Yeah,
If that makes sense.
makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, so happy to help on anything with that.
Okay, great.
Hunter, did you have something?
Yeah, I had 2 quick questions. The first, and you may have said this, I'm sorry if I missed it. What is your average wait time between when somebody that is actively available and ready to purchase enters the wait list to when they have the opportunity to purchase or choose to purchase?
Love it. About 6 months on the finance side is my estimate. As I'm technically quoting 6 to 8, but I really think I'm going to be able to hit that 6 from like if I added you today, and then I'll send you properties as long as you need. But for the month of like that markation of you start getting properties every week, that's about that timeline. And on the cash buyer side, it's about 45 to 60 days. So yeah. And then we're always hoping to get it a little shorter.
And then my second question is, if and when you get to the point where you've decided that you've held the home for a while and you are ready to sell, do investors typically sell directly back to MidSouth, or do they go out on the open market?
So people hardly ever sell, but we can totally help you in any way you want. The vast majority of people are just kind of holding on to what they got and trying to get more. Being in business it went from almost never happening to a little bit a couple years ago, just because the amount of appreciation by people that had invested with us, 10, 15 years ago, we're seeing was enormous. Though really even then more commonly, I'm seeing refinance and pull it out to buy more. The longer we would love to buy the house back to you if we can be your best buyer. We tend to buy more dilapidated properties, so we can't always be the best offer. The longer you have held the home, the more likely we are to be able to be a good buyer for you. And we'll always be happy to let you know what our number could be. I didn't go into this because I didn't want to complicate things, but we offer properties to our wait list that are called 2.0 properties. And what you'll see is it'll be our standard renovation, but we'll say, but we kept this roof because it was only 3 years old, but we've discounted this property $2,000 or an associated discount. So sometimes that might be a property we bought back from one of our investors because they were liquidating. There's a realtor in town that specializes in investment property that obviously our offer would be is without an agent. But I had a guy, he didn't want to sell, but he was getting a divorce and he just had to go. Nobody's ever taken more than 45 days to sell when they go to sell after doing it. And if you could sell your property for what you paid for it, at least historically. I guess I don't ever want to be careful with black swan events or anything in the future, but in my 14 years here, anybody could sell their house for what they paid for it the day after they bought it. I mean, there's hundreds of people behind you in line waiting to buy that house at that price if you hadn't done it. We also hardly ever we don't really take on management of houses that we did not renovate. So we only manage stuff, but we will happily manage for your end buyer. And that actually kind of boosts your sellability, if you will. So we're really coveted as managers to the point I actually have what we call it a perfect email. It's like a little form email that when somebody writes me and says, I have 5 houses driving me nuts over in Memphis, will you guys manage them for me, that we politely decline. So what that means is that the two ways my investors can get houses that are renovated and managed by MidSouth are to buy them from me via the waitlist process, or to buy it from one of my exiting investors. And so that realtor I was mentioning that can help you sell, he has people that subscribe to his newsletter because they want to buy houses specifically that we have renovated and are currently managing. Historically, it's been kind of clean and easy when people needed to do it.
And what are you seeing for appreciation year over year in Memphis and in Little Rock?
Oh man, did I undersell appreciation for the last 14 years? It's been significant. The reality has been 12 and 18% the last couple of years. We're working on, I'm really excited. When you guys check back on our website in a month or two, I am developing these really detailed pro formas that, because I do want to show some of that, like that good question somebody had earlier about closing costs, but also rent appreciation and stuff. And I recognize this is a very simple kind of 1 year look, but it's just because there is so much to capture about real estate. And so we're going to use 5.5% appreciation in that pro forma, because it's actually half of what people have been seeing. But we like to say, you just want to be careful about future projections, obviously. And so 38127 is a zip code that we are actually the largest renovator of properties in that zip code and the largest managers. And it was the most rapidly appreciating zip code in Memphis. 2 years in a row at 18%, when Memphis itself was averaging 12.5%. And like I said, we're going to be using 5.5% in our pro formas just to be conservative. And I see it. I really believe in Memphis. I love living here. I choose to live here. I think it's a very sweet spot for a city in that we're the 42nd biggest city in the US. We're over 1 million population, greater area. We've got world-class restaurants, every major concert, Lollapalooza is going to come here. Any tour is going to come here. And you can live in a safe neighborhood for under $1,000. It's kind of unusual. If you go up the food chain, so to speak, from a city, even just St. Louis or Chicago, your cost of living triples and you get like this much more culture. And if you go down the food chain as the city, your rent's probably the same. I mean, it's like $9.95 to rent a whole house here. And then suddenly, you have a big cultural drop off. And so I'm not from Memphis. I've lived here for 14 years. My husband is born and raised here. And I swear every year he's got another high school friend moving back here from Austin or moving back here from Denver, Portland, or the coast, because they're just priced out and kind of want to come back here to raise their kids where it's affordable. And so, but at the same time, we have a really vibrant music culture, arts culture, tourism. So sorry that's my take off my investor hat, talking on my just person that loves her town hat. But I kind of believe in it for the long term. And then Little Rock is a state capital, which I think has a really amount of built-in stability. Just from my layman's perception of things. My mother grew up in a suburb of Little Rock, so I'm kind of extra familiar with it because I visited it my whole childhood. And it's just gotten cuter every year. It's a smaller town. It's 800,000 greater area. Memphis is 1.3 greater area. The property taxes are a little bit lower there. Let me tell y'all super quick, there's just 3 differences between Memphis and Little Rock for y'all to know. Tennessee has no state income tax. Arkansas is like most of the country where there is state income tax. So basically, technically, you can make $1 million of rental income a year in Tennessee and your CPA is never going to file a income tax return for you at the state level because we don't have it. I don't think that's personally a big deal. I own a property in Missouri, my hometown of St. Louis, that my sister rented from me. And I've never had to file state income tax in Missouri because my CPA just arranges my write-offs. But, you can always consult with tax experts for that. The flip of that, though, is that the property taxes in Little Rock are lower than the property taxes in Memphis. And so exact property taxes are calculated, this total monthly payment here for any property. It's and you can see the amount here when we go to property details. Property taxes $849. That's a little low for Memphis. Watch, I'll click on a Little Rock and it'll be higher, but in general, property taxes $440 here in Little Rock. So just slight different tax price and tax relationships. And then the third thing difference, everything else is interchangeable about these markets. The landlord tenant law kills all of it. The third difference is kind of weird. Memphis, man, is it a landlord's market? I thought I was working for a lunatic when I moved here and learned this, but the absolute market norm in Memphis, Tennessee for single family home rentals is that renters bring all of their own appliances. Renters bring their stove, renters bring their fridge, in addition to their washer and dryer. When Terry, the owner of MidSouth, when I started here 14 years ago, I was on the leasing side, and he said, don't forget to remind the renters to bring their appliances. And I was like, oh, I'm working for a crazy person. Like, I can't, what are you talking about? I'm about to get laughed off the phone. I'm not gonna, and then literally the first Mrs. Smith that I talked to, and I kind of say, don't forget to bring your appliances. She's like, oh yeah, of course. And she's like, there's nothing in there, right? And I was like, yeah, no, ma'am, there's nothing in there. Because our tip is such a strong rental town. Our typical renter is coming from another single family home. Our renters already own lawnmowers, already own stoves, already own fridges. And it's just weird. But it's not us. You couldn't force that into a market. And in fact, the degree to which you can't force it is that Little Rock is not like that. So here we are looking at, if you see my cursor here, we are looking at a Memphis kitchen, and you see how there's no appliances. And here we are looking at a Little Rock kitchen, and you will see that they are included. You just have to be competitive with other landlords. And so in Little Rock, you would get laughed off the phone, and it would deter your ability to get a renter in. In Memphis, you don't. And so it's just a minor perk of Memphis, frankly. You will never have to repair them. You'll never have to replace them. So yeah, just kind of a little random nuance of markets. Every place is a little different.
All right, thanks. And then let's take one more question. Judy, you have a question?
I just wondered, does MidSouth have any intent to go outside of those two markets? Are you looking at any other markets?
It's not off the table. We're perfectionists and we're kind of control freaks, and a lot of markets don't have construction style. If you can't tell, we like these brick ranches, just built on a slab, the right size. The way we did Little Rock, just to let y'all know, this is not some satellite market for us. So the new people related to our expansion are here in Memphis. We paid relocation for 27 long-term multi-year career employees here in Memphis. They trained their replacements here in Memphis and moved with their children and families to Little Rock personally. My best friend, Jenny, that I got a job here about 8 years ago, her and her husband, Bloss, Terry moved my best friend out of town to Little Rock. So we've only been in Little Rock 5 years. The people wiring that electrical or rolling that paintbrush have worked for us for 10 plus. And then every Tuesday, my boss and a number of department heads that did not move to Memphis, to Little Rock, get on in our 15-passenger Sprinter van. And every Tuesday, the owner of the company and everybody else rolls out to Little Rock, and they walk every new buy and every finished rehab. And so I like St. Louis. I'm from there. There's Birmingham. It's not off it's not impossible. It's just a very big jump. And it's something we were in Little Rock for a full year before we even told any of our investors that we were, because we wanted to cut our teeth on how property taxes work. We wanted to cut our teeth on code enforcement, all of that. And so we already owned about 45 houses in Little Rock the very first time I ever even told an investor we were there. It's just a big thing to do, if that makes sense. But maybe one day, but Terry's careful. We've been being asked to go to other markets for years, and he really talk about us not having turnover. He puts a lot of emphasis on quality of life, and his children were younger. And part of us expanding to Little Rock was literally that his oldest kid went off to college. I'm sorry, his youngest kid went off to college. And also we had a layer of management in place in Memphis that Memphis would not take any loss from his time away. He'd always said for years that either his family or Memphis would take a hit if he were to try to spread out. But now this 5 years in Little Rock, frankly, it's stabilized. We've cut our teeth on everything. We're ginning, the assembly line is turning. We have a warehouse out there. We got a box truck. So sorry, that's a bit of a long answer, but maybe is the short one.
All right, awesome. Well, Liz, thank you so much for your time. I know we went a little bit long here, but if people want to reach you, your email is on the website, correct?
All paths lead to me. If you hit send me more info, that goes to me. I am Liz at MidSouthHomeBuyers.com. So just LIZ at our website. Here is me as well. I don't know why that's, oh gosh, y'all, sorry. That's opening up my own personal mail browser. But anyway, we quit mail. But yes, so I can I'd love to add anybody to the wait list that wants to join. We can set up, my assistant can set up individual phone calls for anybody that just maybe thinks of stuff they didn't get touched on today. That video that Heather and I were kind of talking about at the very beginning is this one right here, tour of our renovations. Y'all watch that if you get a chance. I'm aware that a lot of cities don't have safe or quality neighborhoods at these price points. And one thing I like about that video is not only are we standing in front of a trashed house that's as broken down as they are when we get them, which is why it's such a full rehab. And you see the street, and it's a cute street. But what I love about that is there's a drone shot, and the drone pulls way out. You can't even see that if you're here in person. And you see how nice the rest of the whole area is. And we're standing in front of like a $98,000 house. So y'all check kind of that out too as well. And yeah, just email me to let me know what I can do for you guys to add you to the list. All I need is name, phone number, whether you want to finance or cash. And then like, I'll take a note, like if you're like, I really want this or that, you see every house I get no matter what, but I just will take any notes that you want to share with me about what you're looking for, what you want to do. And we can just take it from there.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks again, Liz. Really appreciate your time. So informative. I think everybody got value out of that. And I'm sure I know myself and some other people will probably be in touch as well.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys. It was a pleasure. Have a good